Today, I'm doing a review between the Razer Viper V2 Pro and the Starlight 12 Poseidon. This is going to be a scuffed video because I just don't feel like making it fancy, so you're getting what you're getting. Also, before we get into it, my personal preference, the things that I think are important might not be the same things that you think are important, so I definitely think that you should tally your own, so that way at the end of the video, you can decide which one is better for you. So let's get nerdy. Starting off with the sensor, the Razer Viper V2 Pro comes with Razer's Focus Pro sensor, which is the best sensor on the market, where the Finalmouse Starlight 12 comes with the final sensor, which is based off the 3370. The Focus Pro has 30,000 DPI compared to 20,000 DPI, 750 IPS compared to 450 IPS, and 70G acceleration compared to, I think, 60G acceleration. The Razer Viper V2 Pro also has something called asymmetric cutoff, which allows you to adjust liftoff and landing distance. Inside the software, you can actually see this by adjusting this bar to wherever you want it, along with this one. Allows you to have really granular control of how low or high your liftoff distance is. So if that's something that you really care about, the Viper V2 Pro is going to be for you. The other thing that the Viper V2 Pro has is something called smart tracking, which means that no matter what surface that you're using it on, so it can even be glass itself, and it should be able to track and have a consistent liftoff distance no matter what. So that's another win to the Razer sensor. And last, the Razer sensor has something called motion sync, which syncs the signal that is being sent out by your mouse and syncs the signal that the computer is reading, so they're both in line to give you the most up-to-date positioning of your mouse. And then also, with the Razer having its own software, you're actually able to adjust the DPI anywhere from 100 to 30,000 DPI in increments of 50, where with the Finalmouse Starlight 12, you only have 4 presets, which are 400, 800, 1600, and 3200. You don't have anything else. What does this actually translate to in real life? Well, the Razer Viper V2 Pro's sensor feels dramatically better, is way more accurate, is better for tracking, flicking, literally everything that you name it. The Razer Viper V2 Pro absolutely stomps the Starlight 12 in this category, so it's an easy win to the Viper V2 Pro. Moving on to the weight, the Razer Viper V2 Pro weighs either 58 or 59 grams. The 59 grams is going to be for the white version because it weighs 1 gram more due to the coating of it. So there you go, 59 grams. And then the Starlight 12 can weigh anywhere from 42 grams to 49 grams, depending on if you get a medium or a small. And also, it's one of those that it just depends on the tolerances of the magnesium alloy base that you get on how light it is. This particular one is 44 grams. So you have a 15 gram difference between these two, which is definitely noticeable. I would say it's not as noticeable as going from, like, say 80 grams to 60 grams, but going from 60 grams to 45 grams is definitely noticeable in your game. I definitely think having a lighter mouse is going to be superior for tracking and everything like that. So that's something, even though this has a dramatically better sensor, because this is more lightweight, it's a closer battle in game performance due to that. However, I think I still give the win to the Viper V2 Pro in overall accuracy. However, when it comes to weight, the Starlight 12 obviously absolutely destroys the V2 Pro. When it comes to actually balance of weight, I would also say that Finalmouse did a great job, where the Starlight 12 is literally pretty much perfectly balanced. Almost no matter where you grab it, it's pretty darn balanced. Where the Viper V2 Pro is no slouch in balance either. It has excellent balance all across the weight as well. So it's one of those, this is probably one of the most well-balanced mice that I've ever tried, even beating the G Pro Superlight. But the Starlight 12 does a great job in that too. I don't think I can give a winner to that one, so I'm going to give it a tie in the sense of balance. But yeah, like I said, weight definitely goes to the Starlight 12. Obviously. Moving on to the switches themselves, the Starlight 12 has mechanical switches. I believe they're Bend 8.0 Kales as of the Poseidon, where the Razer Viper V2 Pro has the Gen 3 optical switches from Razer, which are rated for 90 million clicks, 0.2 millisecond response time, and 3 times faster than traditional mechanical switches. And it's also one of those that, with them being optical, they have 0 debounce delay and are immune to double clicks. So they are incredibly fast and snappy. And when the Starlight first came out, the clicks were really, really slow. However, recently, I'm going to read a script for this to save time, they came out with something called zero click latency firmware, which requires a manual update, which isn't super easy to do, way more involved than most people are used to. So that's kind of a pain in the butt, but the new debouncing algorithm has zero debounce on press and instead applies it on release. Slam clicking is also avoided by adjusting debounce when the mouse is lifted in the air. The moment it's back on ground, the zero latency debounce kicks back in. It also has something called lens bonding, that the sensor lens bonded not only to the sensor chip, but also via web process to the base of the mouse, means even minor lens rattle that can affect motion data or unwanted noise is resolved, and it doesn't affect the liftoff distance and ensures 100% fixed lens position. My Finalmouse is great at marketing. I think half that is really not super important. When it comes spec-wise, obviously optical switches are going to be superior over mechanical switches for a lot of different reasons. However, we also need to do the feel test because I would say you can make or break a mouse based on how the clicks actually feel. So let's dive into the specifics of both of these mice. Starting off with the Viper V2 Pro, it has mild pre-travel and moderate post-travel, maybe arguably mild post-travel as well, which is the same on both of the clicks. However, both my clicks feel exactly the same, but the sound is different from my left click to my right click, which tends to be pretty regular for these types of things. When it comes to side play itself, I don't really have any side play whatsoever on either mouse 1 or mouse 2 when it comes to this particular model. Obviously, that'll change a little bit based off of the variants of the mouse you got, but from general, what I'm seeing from people is that the Viper V2 Pro doesn't really have any sidewall. When it comes to the Starlight 12, it's one of those that it has moderate pre-travel and moderate post-travel, making it so the click is kind of mushy. It's also when we're going into, sorry, I kind of blew past that. Let me do some more clicks. So that's click, 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 click. So obviously just is way smaller on this. When it comes to variance for this guy, there is quite a bit if you really are cranking on it, especially on that left one. So it's one of those that I think that'll vary from person to person as well, depending on the variance that you get for your particular mouse. But there is more side play on these than it is for that. You also have some engraving here that you will be able to feel. Again, I don't think that that's going to bother most people because for the most part, I don't feel that, but is something just to note where it is totally flat on this one. Also, when you're looking at the actual curvature, both of these have a very similar shape in the way that their clicks are shaped. Put your finger to the middle of the switch itself. As for the crispness of the Starlight 12, it's not very crisp. It's one of those, it feels pretty mushy, especially when I'm comparing it to other premiums like mice. It's a very quiet click, which is something that I really like because the Viper V2 Pro's clicks are really, really loud. Like night and day difference there of how loud the clicks are. So I do say the noise is definitely better on this guy, but how crisp of a click the Viper V2 Pro has is dramatically different, where it's way more crisper than the Starlight 12. So I would definitely give the click win across the board to the Starlight 12. Absolutely no competition there. When it comes to the side buttons themselves, the Viper V2 Pros kind of sticks out quite a bit, where the Starlight 12s sticks out quite a bit as well. The Starlight 12 actually has some of my favorite side clicks on any mouse, period. So it's really hard to declare a winner here. Looking a little bit closer, mild pre/post travel for, I would say, both of them. I guess you could argue maybe mild pre-travel, moderate post-travel for this guy. Kind of hard to tell, where with the Viper V2 Pro, I would say that it's mild pre and post travel as well, but if you really squeeze, you can maybe get moderate post travel. But both of them feel really crisp. I think maybe the Viper V2 Pro feels ever so slightly more crisp. They're both in excellent positions. I don't want to change my focus on my camera, so it's just going to be a little blurry, but it's one of those that the position of the side clicks for both of these guys is excellent, so you can do either dedicated clicks or the roll clicks for either one of them are really easy. And so I would say that it's going to be a tie when it comes to the actual side clicks for both of these, as they're both really excellent. Moving on to the scroll wheel itself, which is a whole another can of worms, as Starlight 12's scroll issues. Just Finalmouse is so bad with their scroll wheels. They've had problems with their scroll wheels since the inception of them making mice. How they haven't fixed this issue kind of blows my mind. I really don't understand it. A ton of people have their mouse wheel being crooked. as you can see on mine, it's slightly to the right. They've said that they've supposedly fixed this in the last 2 variants. I didn't have it with my Phantom, so obviously that one's actually centered, and I was lucky and I didn't have it for my Aries either, but it's one of those that obviously for my Starlight 12 it is a little bit off center. That's been an issue that people have had across the board. It's also one of those that the encoders like to go bad all the time. People are talking about that. This particular one is probably one of the worst scroll wheels I've ever felt. It feels dramatically different compared to my Phantom and to my original Aries, where I would say both of these scroll wheels feel pretty much the same, where this guy feels a lot different. It's got a little more crisp, dedicated steps, but then it almost feels like it's crunching. And when I actually go to do the middle mouse click, it requires moderate pressure, and it has like mild pre and post travel. And it's one of those, a lot of times when I go to do it, I accidentally move my sensor up or down. So it's the click up and down. So it's kind of like, I kind of like roll off it, and it's kind of annoying, and I don't always get the full click like I'm supposed to. And it causes other issues if you actually have things binded to up and down. So not a fan of this scroll wheel really at all. It's also one of those that supposedly they are having a fix because a ton of people are having issues with the scroll wheels yet again. So yeah, QA issues are all over the Starlight 12, but we'll get into that more a little bit later into the review. I've already kind of ranted a little too much about that. Where the Viper V2 Pro, very dedicated clicks, very smooth action throughout, and mild pre and post travel with light pressure to actually click. I can click this no matter where I'm pressing. I can click it nice and easy. Really am a big fan of this scroll wheel. It's excellent. This guy is smooth, but it's just and if I'm trying to press it from the front here, it doesn't actually actuate. It's an issue. So obviously primary clicks win goes to the Viper V2 Pro. Side clicks are a tie between the two. When it comes to the scroll wheel itself, definitely a big win to the Viper V2 Pro. QA Central here. I've been lucky with 2 out of my 3 copies. There's nothing necessarily wrong with this one, but it just doesn't I can't count on it like I should be able to count on it. Moving on to the wireless, the Viper V2 Pro uses Razer's Hyperspeed wireless, which is supposedly 25% faster than any of the competition. The Starlight 12 comes with Godspeed wireless, which uses the Nordic RF platform NRF 52840, which is developed in-house by Finalmouse and uses revolutionary channel hopping scheme to guarantee 100% flawless motion data along with sensor improvements to eliminate artifact drift. It can work up to 80 feet away flawlessly. Not even a single pixel will veer off course. You have to take all of that with a huge grain of salt because Finalmouse is great at lying to you and embellishing their marketing. I'm not saying that Razer necessarily doesn't do the same thing, or any other company for that fact does the same thing, but Finalmouse does all of that on steroids. So it's one of those, I haven't had any issues or skips with the wireless, but it's definitely one of those that the wireless feels a lot more solid on the Viper V2 Pro than it does on this guy. But for most people, I think it's going to be a wash, but I'm going to give the win to the Viper V2 Pro just based off of the data that I've seen for the Viper V2 Pro in comparison to the Finalmouse, and the fact that they're continually making adjustments on the Finalmouse, which is good. I'm happy that they're making updates and they're improving it, but it's one of those, I give the win to the Viper V2 Pro. They both finally have 1000 hertz. Forever, Finalmouse like to do 500, but you can do 1000 hertz. However, you can change it to 500 or 100 if you want to, where you can with the Viper V2 Pro. In case you would do that, I don't know why you would. The warranty for the Viper V2 Pro is 2 years. The warranty for the Finalmouse is 1 year premium warranty service, where a trained Finalmouse tech will repair or solve specific issues, so you keep the same laser engraved number because these are limited edition. So you have certain editions. I have 1,100 out of 10,000 for mine, and then after the first year, fees will be associated with shipping and handling to repair this. And the issue is that Finalmouse has a bunch of QA issues and things break on a regular basis, so you may have to send it in. I've heard some people that it's a pretty painless experience. Heard from other people that it's an extremely painful experience. I would say that I've heard kind of the same thing with Razers. I've had to do Razers once, and it was a painful experience for me, so it went really well. But anyways, 2 years compared to 1 year, and the fact that this isn't limited edition, you can just trade it out in a store and you're good to go, is nice. However, I do like limited edition stuff too, so that one's gonna vary a little bit based off of your personal preference, but warranty definitely goes to the Viper V2 Pro. Not that I think you should get a point or not for that. Moving on to battery life. Battery life for the Viper V2 Pro is 80 hours. With With the optical switches, it means that it's going to use battery a little bit quicker than a mechanical switch, just because you have a light beam that's constantly on. Has great battery life. I haven't been able to test this out fully, but from what I've seen so far, it has really good battery life. However, I would say the best battery life that I've ever seen in a mouse, period, goes to the Starlight 12. I think I've charged I think I've charged my like Starlight 12s like 2 or 3 times, and I've had all of them at launch, bought at launch, and used them a ton more than most of my other mice. So it's one of those, their battery life, they say 160 hours. They use a Johnson lithium ion battery, which is absolutely insane. It's brilliant. So easy win to the Starlight 12. As for onboard profiles, well, there is no one single onboard profile, I guess you could say, for the Starlight 12. Not that you can adjust it. There's only one profile for the Viper V2 Pro, and it takes whatever is on Synapse last and makes it saved onboard. No RGB lighting on either one of them. I guess you have a little tiny RGB light there when you turn it on and when you're switching DPIs, where with this guy, when you switch it on, it'll be green and then it'll go red when you're low on battery, so you know. But that's it. They both have a right-handed symmetrical shape, so it's one of those, and they're very similar in shape too, where you have it tapering on in the insides on both of these and then flaring out on the backs. I don't know if I can really show you, but as you can see, it goes in on the insides here on the back and then flares on the sides a little bit. And then this one's a lot smaller, just because I have the small here. The medium is also going to be smaller than the Viper as well, because I would consider the Viper to be a large mouse, where this is going to be a true medium mouse, and this is going to be a true small mouse. And then if you want to see the difference between those two by just a bit, I personally really like the size of the small. I like the shape a lot better. So personally, I think the shape of the Starlight 12 is superior. So I would personally give it to the Starlight 12, where the shape of the Viper is very hit and miss for people, with some people absolutely loving it, some people absolutely hating it. Again, I haven't heard the same complaints about the Viper or about the Starlight, so I definitely think the win is going to go to an easy win to the Starlight 12. Also, the fact that you can get it in 2 different sizes of the small and medium helps a lot too. Moving on to the cable, this comes with a wired SpeedFlex cable that's USB-C, which is really nice. It's a nice cable. It's also certified. The Finalmouse Starlight 12 comes with micro USB, which is kind of gross. Understand why they did it. It's cheaper, a little more lightweight. I would have loved to have seen USB-C here though. And when it comes to the cables though, the cable that you get is the Phantom Flex for the Starlight 12, that I think is actually a little bit more flexible than the one that comes with the Starlight 12. So I would say that the cable itself is a little bit better. It is close, but the USB-C is definitely the winner, so goes to the Viper V2 Pro in my personal opinion. They both have 5 buttons. Obviously you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just kidding, you have 6 buttons, but that's a DPI button, and you can't change any of these buttons because there is no software for the Starlight 12. Where this guy, you have 5, 1, 2, middle mouse button, 4, and 5. You can adjust all of that in Razer Synapse. Then as you can see, you can actually change all of the buttons if you so please on the Viper V2 Pro. You also have a whole bunch of other customizations. So like I said, that would be the hyper speed multi-device pairing that you could go into. You have the different performances of adjusting that. You can change the pulling rate, you can change the calibration, and you can change power savings. So obviously the win for that also goes to the Viper V2 Pro. Moving on to the PTFE Feet, they both use 100% PTFE. There's 3 compared to 4. They're both rounded. I'm going to have to say that it feels smoother on the Starlight 12 over the Viper V2 Pro. I don't know if that's because of the weight difference, but I think the PTFE Feet are also a lot thicker on the Starlight 12. So it's one of those that you can very easily see it there on the image, where this guy is very thin. So definitely an easy win to the Starlight 12 for the PTFE Feet. Moving on to the colors, this guy comes in black and white. This guy comes in a bunch of different colors depending on the drop. However, since it is limited edition, it means that it's going to be a lot harder to get the color that you want, because 1, you have to actually secure it during a drop, or 2, you have to pay way above retail in order to get it from a third party, which I don't like. So it's one of those that I do give the colors. I also think that just the colors that you get for the Starlight 12 are sweet. I wish this was a little darker of a blue, but it's not. And then the Phantom was fine, but the Aries, this metallic red is probably my favorite color, because metallic red is one of my favorite colors, and it's gorgeous. So it's one of those that I definitely would give the color to the Starlight 12. So that's a point for the Starlight 12. When it comes to cost, this guy is $149.99. I think if it was post-COVID, it'd be $130 instead. Maybe if prices do end up coming down, you might see a price decrease to this to $130. I also think that you'll be able to find this guy on sale once it's been out for a while. So you're going to be able to find this guy on sale for a regular basis basis because, again, it's not a limited drop. And 2, it's one of those that it's because of that, it's actually going to go on sale. For the Starlight 12, it's $189.99, so it's $190 for each one of these mice. If you can get it during the drop, it's never going to go on sale. And then otherwise, you have to pay for a third party, which could dramatically increase in price from $189 or more. So that's an easy win to the Viper V2 Pro. When it comes to are they green compliant? The Viper V2 Pro is. I don't know about Finalmouse. Their packaging is pretty limited, so I would say kind of want to guess that they are. When it comes to the Reflex, are you able to use it on a Reflex monitor? As of this video, you can't on the Viper V2 Pro, and I don't think that that's supported on the Starlight 12 either. Moving on to some other points that I haven't mentioned. They did say with the Poseidon that the scroll wheel switch, it was supposed to be updated to provide a higher height and also eliminate any centering of to eliminate non-centering of the wheel. I do notice that it does appear to be possibly a little bit higher on the mouse itself, but not centered. And we went through all the issues that it could be having. They also say that the magnesium tolerance eliminates the need of Mylar in 95% of units. For those of you who were unaware, for the previous drops, they have a little tiny Mylar pad, which is pretty much like a little tiny thing of PTFE Feet that goes on the click, that when it presses the switch, that it for reasons to, and that little pad was actually coming off. So you would have glue, which then would cause your click to stick and be kind of annoying, which was frustrating for people. Supposedly they've kind of fixed that. I still am not the biggest fan of the clicks in general for all of these, as every single one of them, it's improving as it goes on along. I actually think my Phantom has the best clicks out of any of them, but it's still has some work to do in that regard. They also say the QC process and production tolerances reduces side creaking. On both of my smalls, I don't have any side creaking. On my medium, I do. And when it comes to this guy, I don't have any creaking at all anywhere either. So it's one of those that's pretty good. When it comes to in-game performance, I perform better with the V2 Pro just because the sensor is better. The switches are going to give you a little faster reaction time, and I think this is just a better built mouse all around. You can still run into quality assurance issues no matter what mouse you get, but it's a lot less likely on the Viper than it is on any of the Starlights, just because this is a huge gamble anytime you buy any of these, just because 1, limited edition, 2, it's only available in drops because of that, and 3, if you buy it from a third party, I think they still offer, they still allow you to have a warranty and everything like that, but it makes it a little harder to go through that process. So I just think that you're taking a big gamble on the Starlight 12, and you might as well just save some money and get a superior mouse with the Viper V2 Pro, because in my opinion, this is the better mouse. However, I still use my Starlights all the time. I really enjoy them. The weight is just absolutely fantastic. The shape, it just feels so good. I love the side clicks. With their new 0-click latency, it's improved the performance of this a lot, where it feels a lot more snappy, and I enjoy using it a lot more than I did before. But the Viper V2 Pro still just now, especially with the lighter weight and the improved sensor and the clicks just feel better, I perform better with it, and I've constantly beaten high scores with this guy. I did the same thing with this guy when I first got it, but now this is beating all of my high scores, and I don't even have to be warmed up, and I haven't played competitive video games for quite a while, and it's still one of those that I'm doing better with this mouse than I ever have with this one. So yeah, my winner is definitely the V2 Pro. But anyways, that's the end of this review. I would love to hear which one you decided on down in the comment section below, because I love to have a discourse with you guys, so do let me know. Otherwise, like, dislike, share, subscribe if you'd like. Otherwise, I will see you and your beautiful face on the next one. God bless and peace out.